If you already own a Mini 4 Pro, is the Mini 5 Pro an upgrade you'll actually feel, or is it just another shinier number on the box? Today I'll show you what's identical and what's actually different, and whether you should upgrade now or keep your cash for batteries and snacks. G'day friends, my name is Brett and I shoot real jobs and beginner tutorials every week, and in this video I lined up every spec side by side so you don't have to squint at marketing charts and all that kind of junk. Now, if you already have a drone and you want to get better at using it, grab my free drone starter kit. It gives you all the settings you need to get professional photos and cinematic video on your very next flight. Links in the description if you need it. Let's get on with the video. Okay, let's talk about what's the same, and this is good news for Mini 4 Pro owners. If these features matter most to you, you may already have what you need. Okay, for photo formats, both drones shoot in JPEG and RAW. They both shoot 4K HDR video at 60 frames per second, and they both also shoot 100 frames per second for slow motion. The Mini 4 Pro and the Mini 5 Pro also shoot true vertical, which means that the gimbal rotates vertically to get that vertical footage, which is great for social media like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts. They also do shoot in 10-bit profiles as well, which is D-Log and HLG. And of course, they both have hyperlapse, waypoint flights, cruise control, master shots, and panorama. Both drones have advanced return to home. They both have access to Lightcut, which is an app you can do your editing on the fly, so to speak, and they both fall in the sub 250 gram weight class, as both of them are weighted at 249 grams. Another feature that's mentioned with the Mini 5 Pro is the portrait optimization mode. Mini 4 Pro already has that, so there's nothing new there. And if you want a controller with a screen, it's still the same DJI RC2 screen that was in the previous drone. So far it's not a must upgrade, but the differences I'm about to talk to next are where it gets interesting. So what's actually different between the Mini 4 Pro and the Mini 5 Pro? So let's compare the two sensors between the two drones. The Mini 4 Pro has a 1/1.3 inch sensor at 48 megapixels for photos, whereas the Mini 5 Pro is a 1 inch sensor with 50 megapixel photos, which is also an F3S feature. And this is a big jump for this drone, and why it matters is you get cleaner low light footage, smoother gradients, more forgiving shadows at dawn and dusk, and on gloomy days, and of course at night. Now let's talk about the aperture of these two drones, the differences. The Mini 4 Pro does f1.7 and the Mini 5 Pro does f1.8. So while the Mini 5 Pro has a slightly smaller aperture, the larger sensor more than compensates for this loss. It's not even really much of a loss at all. Now let's go through the flight time comparisons. The Mini 4 Pro does 34 minutes and the Mini 5 Pro does 36 minutes. So you get a whole 2 minutes of flight time out of it. It's not huge, but you get 2 more minutes, right? So you might get another shot at your hero pass, the great shot you want, or you just get a calmer landing. Either way, it's a little bit of a win. Now, keep in mind with both of these drones, you can actually get longer battery life by buying the bigger battery pack, but that will put you over the 250 gram mark. So if you're trying to keep your drone under 250 grams, then I recommend just buying extra batteries of the standard batteries rather than buying the bigger battery. And as far as the transmission system goes, the Mini 4 Pro is using 04, which gives you 20 kilometers of range, and the Mini 5 Pro gives you 04 Plus, which gives you 20 kilometers of range. But what it does mean is the 04 Plus typically means steadier link, steadier connection in interference heavy suburbs like city edges and things like that or in the country. Okay, let's get into obstacle avoidance, the obstacle sensing and low light behavior of these drones. The Mini 4 Pro does omnidirectional obstacle avoidance, which is amazing. That's pretty damn good in that drone. The Mini 5 Pro does nightscape omnidirectional sensing and forward-facing LiDAR assist, which is also on the F3S. And what this means, it means you get safer twilight flights, smarter avoidance, even when it's dim or even in the dark. So let's talk about the gimbal rotation between these two drones, because there is a difference. The Mini 4 Pro will rotate the actual gimbal to vertical, which is great for vertical shooting, and the Mini 5 Pro does that as well, but it also rotates it to 225 degrees, which means it goes way beyond that point. And what this gives you is more angles for greater creativity. It's just a little bit more cinematic. And will you use it? I don't know, maybe at first, but I think it almost falls into the gimmicky range. Although it is pretty cool that they managed to do this, and I'd probably use it for a while. Okay, this is where the Mini 5 Pro steps up a little bit, because you've got a zoom function on the Mini 5 Pro. On the Mini 4 Pro you don't have that. Now, is it a separate lens? No, it's actually the same lens. It's a 2x crop, so it takes your normal lens and makes it into a 48mm equivalent. And what this gives you is tighter framing on people, cars, landmarks without flying as close. It also gives you that parallax effect where the foreground is separated from the background a little more and it appears to be moving faster. As I said, it isn't a dedicated lens, it's cropping in on your shot, and it's a handy feature to have for sure. Now let's talk about the difference in propellers. In the Mini 4 Pro they're screw-on, so you always had to carry that little screwdriver with you, which is fine if you want to change your props if you weren't in a hurry, but if you're in a hurry it's quite irritating. But the Mini 5 Pro is a push release, and why this matters is you can swap out the props quicker, and it also means fewer tiny screws sacrificed to the grass gods. Okay, let's talk about internal storage. There's differences here as well. The Mini 4 Pro has a very minute amount of 2 gigabytes of storage inbuilt, and the Mini 5 Pro is a large onboard storage system of 48 gigabytes, which is another Air 3S feature as well. So I hear you ask, why does this matter if you're using an SD card? Well, imagine you've decided to go on an overseas holiday, you pack your drone and your gear and you board your flight, and you get to your destination in the middle of nowhere, excited to get some dusk video or great landscape shots, and you fire up your drone and realize, oh no SD card. With the Mini 4 Pro, you won't get much footage out of 2 gig when shooting 4K. That's why it matters. Now let's talk about the controllers that come with the basic version of this drone. The Mini 4 Pro uses the RC-N2 controller, and the Mini 5 Pro uses the RC-N3 controller, which is the same as the Air 3S, but I'll explain why that irritates the hell out of me later on in the video. Now, there is a price difference between the original drone and this one. The Mini 4 Pro is Australian is $949 or US $631. The Mini 5 Pro is $1,119 Australian or US $744. And why this matters? Well, it doesn't really, because you're paying for that 1-inch sensor. You get smarter low light sensing, you get LiDAR, you get bigger storage, you get 04 plus transmission range, you get gimbal flexibility and quality of life tweaks as well. But let's talk about what I like and what I don't like about this drone compared to the other one. What I like is the 1-inch sensor, obviously, because it's better for that low light capability. I like the removable propellers, and to some extent I like the rotating gimbal, although I'm not sure how much I would use that. Also, the internal storage is a great idea, and I love that it has LiDAR as well, because I also have the Air 3S, and that's a very handy feature. What I don't like is what I mentioned earlier in the video, is the fact that the controller is the same as the Air 3S. You'll end up with 2 controllers exactly the same. It would have been nice for DJI to offer a drone only price for people like me who have the Air 3S already, but as far as I know, you can't buy the drone without the controller as yet. And the marketing on the Mini 5 Pro is also a little bit misleading, as the experts are all saying, wow, it has 14 stops of dynamic range, oh my god! Well, so did the Mini 4 Pro. And because the Mini 5 Pro has that larger sensor, it will give you better results with less noise in your images or footage, but 14 stops is still 14 stops. So should you upgrade to the Mini 5 Pro? Well, if you shoot lots of low light, sunrise, sunset, indoors, cloudy days, or if you film people or moving subjects solo and you want easier tracking and safer framing with that 2x crop, if you care about cinematic tilts and reveals and more flexible composition, this might be a bonus for you. If you want those Air Series style perks without paying the Air Series prices basically. Or if you have a Mini 3 Pro, you might find these features way more interesting, because a jump from a Mini 3 Pro to a Mini 5 Pro is a pretty big leap. But if you have a Mini 4 Pro already and you mostly shoot in daylight for social delivery, reels, shorts and 1080p or even 4K, you don't need the extra gimbal flexibility or low light gains, then maybe just keep that drone, because the Mini 4 Pro is a damn good drone all by itself. And if you go and get yourself some ND filters and some fast memory cards, you'll get almost the same results as the Mini 5 Pro, because at the end of the day, great shots come from any drone if you take the time to learn your settings and functions. And don't forget to grab my drone starter kit, link is in the description as I mentioned earlier. But my personal rule of thumb is when it comes to upgrading drones, it's best to upgrade every second model. That way you're not paying out a fortune all the time, and the differences between a new model from the one before are never really huge changes. But the changes are much more improved on the drone from 2 releases ago. But if either of these drones are a little out of your price range, I have a great alternative right here in this video about the Potensic Atom 2. This drone is feature packed for an amazing price. Thanks for watching.